Welcome to the virtual Big Data Conference. Vertica is so excited to host this event. I'm Joy King, and I'll be your host for today's Big Data Conference keynote session. It's my honor and my genuine pleasure to lead Vertica's product and go-to-market strategy, and I'm so lucky to have a passionate and committed team who turned our Vertica BDC event into a virtual event in a very short amount of time. I want to thank the thousands of people, and yes, that's a true number, who have registered to attend this virtual event. We were determined to balance your health, safety, and your peace of mind with the excitement of the Vertica BDC. This is a very unique event because, as I hope you all know, we focus on engineering and architecture, best practice sharing, and customer stories that will educate and inspire everyone. I also want to thank our top sponsors for the virtual BDC, Arrow and Pure Storage. Our partnerships are so important to us and to everyone in the audience because together we get things done faster and better. Now for today's keynote, you'll hear from three very important and energizing speakers. First, Colin Mahoney, our SVP and General Manager for Vertica, will talk about the market trends that Vertica is betting on to win for our customers. And he'll share the exciting news about our Vertica 10 announcement and how this will benefit our customers. Then you'll hear from Amy Fowler, VP of Strategy and Solutions for FlashBlade at Pure Storage. Our partnership with Pure Storage is truly unique in the industry because together, modern infrastructure from Pure powers modern analytics from Vertica. And then you'll hear from John Yovanovich, Director of IT at AT&T, who will tell you about the Pure Vertica Symphony that plays live every day at AT&T. Here we go, Colin. Over to you.
Well, thanks a lot, Joy. And, I want to echo Joy's thanks to our sponsors and so many of you who have helped make this happen. This is not an easy time for anyone. We were certainly looking forward to getting together in person in Boston during the Vertica Big Data Conference and winning with data. But I think all of you and our team have done a great job scrambling and putting together a terrific virtual event. So really appreciate your time. Also want to remind people that we will make both the slides and the full recording available after this. So for any of those who weren't able to join live, that is still going to be available. Well, things have been pretty exciting here, and in the analytics space in general, certainly for Vertica. There's a lot happening. There are a lot of problems to solve, a lot of opportunities to make things better, and a lot of data that can really make every business stronger, more efficient, and frankly, more differentiated. For Vertica, though, we know that focusing on the challenges that we can directly address with our platform and our people, and where we can actually make the biggest difference is where we ought to be putting our energy and our resources. I think one of the things that has made Vertica so strong over the years is our ability to focus on those areas where we can make a great difference. So for us, as we look at the market and we look at where we play, there are really three recent and some not so recent, but certainly picking up a lot of steam, market trends that have become critical for every industry that wants to win big with data. We've heard this loud and clear from our customers and from the analysts that cover the market. If I were to summarize these three areas, this really is the core focus for us right now. We know that there's massive data growth, and if we can unify those data silos so that people can really take advantage of that data, we can make a huge difference. We know that public clouds offer tremendous advantages, but we also know that balance and flexibility is critical. And we all need the benefit that machine learning, for all it's hyped up to be, and data science, we all need the benefit that they can bring to every single use case, but only if it can really be operationalized at scale accurate, and in real time. And the power of Vertica is, of course, how we're able to bring so many of these things together. But let me talk a little bit more about some of these trends. So, one of the first industry trends that we've all been following, probably now for over the last decade, is Hadoop, and specifically HDFS. So many companies have invested time, money, more importantly, people, in leveraging the opportunity that HDFS brought to the market. HDFS is really part of a much broader storage disruption that we'll talk a little bit more about more broadly than HDFS. But HDFS itself was really designed for petabytes of data, leveraging low-cost commodity hardware and the ability to capture a wide variety of data formats from a wide variety of data sources and applications. And I think what people really wanted was to store that data before having to define exactly what structures it should go into. So over the last decade or so, the focus for most organizations was figuring out how to capture, store, and frankly manage that data. And as a platform to do that, I think Hadoop was pretty good. It certainly changed the way that a lot of enterprises think about their data and where it's locked up. In parallel with Hadoop, particularly over the last 5 years, cloud object storage has also given every organization another option for collecting, storing, and managing even more data. That has led to huge growth in data storage, obviously up on public clouds like Amazon and their S3, Google Cloud Storage, and Azure Blob Storage, just to name a few. And then when you consider regional and local object stores offered by cloud vendors all over the world, the explosion of that data leveraging this type of object storage is very real. And I think, as I mentioned, it's just part of this broader storage disruption that's been going on. But with all this growth in the data and all these new places to put this data, every organization we talk to is facing even more challenges now around the data silo. Sure, the data silo is getting bigger, and hopefully they're getting cheaper, per bit. But as I said, the focus has really been on collecting, storing, and managing the data. But between the Hadoop data lakes, the many different cloud object stores, combined with all sorts of data types and the complexity of managing all this, getting that business value has been very limited. This actually takes me to big bet number one for Team Vertica, which is to unify the data. Our goal, and some of the announcements we have made today, plus roadmap announcements I'll share with you throughout this presentation, our goal is to ensure that all of the time, money, and effort that has gone into storing that data, all of the data, turns into business value. So how are we going to do that? With a unified analytics platform that analyzes the data wherever it is, HDFS, cloud object storage, external tables, in any format, ORC, Parquet, JSON, and of course our own native raw Vertica format. Analyze the data in the right place, in the right format, using a single unified tool. This is something that Vertica has always been committed to, and you'll see in some of our announcements today, we're just doubling down on that commitment. Let's talk a little bit more about the public cloud. This is certainly the second trend. It's the second wave, maybe, of data disruption with object storage. And there's a lot of advantages when it comes to public cloud. There's no question that the public clouds give rapid access to compute, storage, with the added benefit of eliminating data center maintenance that so many companies, want to get out of themselves. But maybe the biggest advantage that I see is the architectural innovation. It's the public clouds have introduced so many methodologies around how to provision quickly, separating compute and storage, and really dialing in the exact needs on demand as you change workloads. When public clouds began, it made a lot of sense for the cloud providers and their customers to charge and pay for compute and storage in the ratios that each use case demanded, and I think you're seeing that trend proliferate all over the place, not just up in public cloud. That architecture itself is really becoming the next generation architecture for on-premise data centers as well. But There are a lot of concerns. I think we're all aware of them. They're out there many times for different workloads. There are higher costs, especially some of the workloads that are being run for analytics, which tend to run all the time. Just like some of the silo challenges that companies are facing with HDFS, data lakes, and cloud storage, the public clouds have similar types of siloed challenges as well. Initially, there was a belief that they were cheaper than data centers, and when you added in all the costs, it looked that way. And again, for certain elastic workloads, that is the case. I don't think that's true across the board overall, even to the point where a lot of the cloud vendors aren't just touting lower costs anymore. We hear from a lot of customers that they don't really want to tether themselves to any one cloud because of some of those uncertainties. Of course, security and privacy are a concern. We hear a lot of concerns with regards to cloud and even some SaaS vendors around shared data catalogs across all the customers and not enough separation. But, security concerns are out there. You can read about them. I'm not going to jump into, that bandwagon, but we hear about them. And of course, I think one of the things we hear the most from our customers is that each cloud stack is starting to feel even a lot more locked in than the traditional data warehouse appliance. And as everybody knows, the industry has been running away from appliances as fast as it can. And so they're not eager to get locked into another quote unquote virtual appliance, if you will, up in the cloud. They really want to make sure they have flexibility in which clouds they're going to today, tomorrow, and in the future. And frankly, we hear from a lot of our customers that they're very interested in eventually mixing and matching compute from one cloud with, say, storage from another cloud, which I think is something that we'll hear a lot more about. And so for us, that's why we've got our big bet number 2. We love the cloud. We love the public cloud. We love the private clouds on-premise and other hosting providers. But our passion and commitment is for Vertica to be able to run in any of the clouds that our customers choose and make it portable across those clouds. We have supported on-premises and all public clouds for years, and today we have announced even more support for Vertica in Eon mode, the deployment option that leverages the separation of compute from storage, with even more deployment choices, which I'm going to also touch more on as we go. So super excited about our big bet number 2. And finally, as I mentioned, for all the hype that there is around machine learning, I actually think that most importantly, this third trend that Team Vertica is determined to address is the need to bring business-critical analytics, machine learning, data science projects into production. For so many years, there just wasn't enough data available to justify the investment in machine learning. Also, processing power was expensive and storage was prohibitively expensive. But to train and score and evaluate all the different models to unlock the full power of predictive analytics was tough. Today, you have those massive data volumes. You have the relatively cheap processing power and storage to make that dream a reality. And if you think about this, I mean, with all the data that's available to every company, the real need is to operationalize the speed and scale of machine learning so that these organizations can actually take advantage of it where they need to. I mean, we've seen this for years with Vertica, going back to some of the most advanced gaming companies in the early days that were incorporating this with live data directly into their gaming experiences. Well, every organization wants to do that now. And the accuracy, replicability, and real-time actions are all key to separating the leaders from the rest of the pack in every industry when it comes to machine learning. But if you look at a lot of these projects, the reality is that there's a ton of buzz, there's a ton of hype spanning every acronym you can imagine, but most companies are struggling, due to separate teams, different tools, silos, and the limitation that many platforms are facing. driving down sampling to get a small subset of the data to try to create a model that then doesn't apply, or compromising accuracy and making it virtually impossible to replicate models and understand decisions. And if there's one thing that we've learned when it comes to data, prescriptive data at the atomic level, being able to show the N of one, as we refer to it, meaning individually tailored data, no matter what it is, healthcare, entertainment experiences like gaming or other, being able to get at the granular data and make these decisions, make that scoring, applies to machine learning just as much as it applies to giving somebody a next best offer. But the opportunity has never been greater. You know, the need to integrate this end-to-end workflow and support the right tools without compromising on that accuracy. You know, think about it as no down sampling, using all the data. It really is key to machine learning success, which should be no surprise then why the third big bet from Vertica is one that we've actually been working on for years, and we're so proud to be where we are today, helping the data disruptors across the world operationalize machine learning. This big bet has the potential to truly unlock really the potential of machine learning. And today we are announcing some very important new capabilities specifically focused on unifying the work being done by the data science community with their preferred tools and platforms, and the volume of data and performance at scale available in Vertica. Our strategy has been very consistent over the last several years. As I said in the beginning, we haven't deviated from our strategy. Of course, there's always things that we add. Most of the time it's customer driven. It's based on what our customers are asking us to do. But I think we've also done a great job not trying to be all things to all people, especially as these hype cycles flare up around us. We absolutely love participating in these different areas without getting completely distracted. I mean, there's a variety of query tools and data warehouses and analytics platforms in the market. We all know that. There are tools and platforms that are offered by the public cloud vendors, by other vendors that support one or two specific clouds. There are appliance vendors who I was referring to earlier who can deliver packaged data warehouse offerings for private data centers. And there's a ton of popular machine learning tools, languages, and other kits. But Vertica is the only advanced analytic platform that can do all this, that can bring it together. We can analyze the data wherever it is in HDFS, S3 object storage, or Vertica itself. Natively, we support multiple clouds, on-premise deployments, and maybe most importantly, we offer that choice of deployment modes to allow our customers to choose the architecture that works for them right now. It still also gives them the option to change, move, evolve over time. And Vertica is the only analytics database with end-to-end machine learning that can truly operationalize ML at scale. And I know it's a mouthful, but it is not easy to do all these things. It is one of the things that highly differentiates Vertica from the rest of the pack. It is also why our customers, all of you, continue to bet on us and see the value that we are delivering and we will continue to deliver. Here's a couple examples of some of our customers who are powered by Vertica. It's the scale of data, it's the millisecond response times. Performance and scale have always been a huge part of what we've been about, not the only thing. I think the functionality, all the capabilities that we add to the platform, the ease of use, the flexibility, obviously, of the deployments. But if you look at some of the numbers that are under these customers on this slide, and I've shared a lot of different stories about these customers, which, by the way, still amaze me every time I talk to one and I get the updates. You can see the power and the difference that Vertica is making. Equally important, if you look at a lot of these customers, they are the epitome of being able to deploy Vertica in a lot of different environments. Many of the customers on this slide are not using Vertica just on-premise or just in the cloud. They're using it in a hybrid way. They're using it in multiple different clouds. And again, we've been with them on that journey throughout, which is what has made this product and, frankly, our roadmap and our vision exactly what it is. It's been quite a journey, and that journey continues now with the Vertica 10 release. The Vertica 10 release is obviously a massive release for us, but if you look back, you can see that building on that native columnar architecture that started a long time ago, obviously with the C-Store paper, we built it to leverage that commodity hardware because it was an architecture that was never tightly integrated with any specific underlying infrastructure. I still remember hearing the initial pitch from Mike Stonebreaker about the vision of Vertica as a software-only solution and the importance of separating the company from hardware innovation. And at the time, Mike basically said to me, there's so much R&D and innovation that's going to happen in hardware, we shouldn't bake hardware into our solution. We should do it in software, and we'll be able to take advantage of that hardware. And that is exactly what has happened. But one of the most recent innovations that we embraced with hardware is certainly that separation of compute and storage. As I said previously, the public cloud providers offered this next generation architecture really to ensure that they can provide the customers exactly what they needed, more compute or more storage, and charge for each respectively. The separation of compute and storage, compute from storage is a major milestone in data center architectures. If you think about it, it's really not only a public cloud innovation though. It fundamentally redefines the next generation data architecture for on-premise and for pretty much every way people are thinking about computing today. And that goes for software too. Object storage is an example of a cost-effective means for storing data, and even more importantly, separating compute from storage for analytic workloads has a lot of advantages, including the opportunity to manage much more dynamic, flexible workloads, and more importantly, truly isolate those workloads from others. And by the way, once you start having something that can truly isolate workloads, then you can have the conversations around autonomic computing, around setting up some nodes, some compute resources on the data that won't affect any of the other data to do some things on their own, maybe some self-analytics by the system, et cetera. A lot of things that many of you know we've already been exploring in terms of our own system data in the product. But it was May 2018, believe it or not, which seems like a long time ago, where we first announced Eon mode. And I want to make something very clear, actually, about Eon mode. It's a mode. It's a deployment option for Vertica customers. And I think this is another huge benefit that we don't talk about enough. But unlike a lot of vendors in the market who will ding you and charge you for every single add-on, like HIPAA and you name it, you get this with the Vertica product. You know, if you continue to pay support and maintenance, this comes with the upgrade. This comes as part of the new release. So any customer who owns or buys Vertica has the ability to set up either an enterprise mode or Eon mode, which is a question I know that comes up sometimes. Our first announcement of Eon was obviously AWS, customers including the Trade Desk, AT&T, both of whom will be speaking here later at the Virtual Big Data Conference. They saw a huge opportunity. Eon mode not only allowed Vertica to scale elastically with that specific compute or storage that was needed, but it really dramatically simplified the database operations, including things like workload balancing, node recovery, compute provisioning, et cetera. So one of the most popular functions is that ability to isolate the workloads and really allocate those resources without negatively affecting others. And even though traditional data warehouses, including Vertica Enterprise mode, have been able to do lots of different workload isolation, it's never been as strong as Eon mode. Well, it certainly didn't take long for our customers to see that value across the board of Eon mode, not just up in the cloud. In partnership with one of our most valued partners and a platinum sponsor here, as Joy mentioned in the beginning, we announced Vertica Eon mode for Pure Storage FlashBlade in September 2019. And again, just to be clear, this is not a new product. It's one Vertica with yet more deployment options. With Pure Storage, Vertica and Eon mode was not limited in any way by variable cloud network latency. The performance is actually amazing when you take the benefits of separating compute from storage and you run it with a Pure environment on-premise. Vertica and Eon mode has a super smart cache layer that we call the depot. It's a big part of our secret sauce around Eon mode, and combined with the power and performance of Pure's FlashBlade, Vertica became the industry's first advanced analytics platform that actually separates compute and storage for on-premises data centers, something that a lot of our customers are already benefiting from, and we're super excited about it. But as I said, this is a journey. We don't stop. We're not going to stop. Our customers need the flexibility of multiple public clouds. So today with Vertica 10, we're super proud and excited to announce support for Vertica and Eon mode on Google Cloud. This gives our customers the ability to use their Vertica licenses on Amazon AWS, on-premise with Pure Storage, and on Google Cloud. Now, we were talking about HDFS, and a lot of our customers who have invested quite a bit in HDFS as a place, especially to store data, have been pushing us to support Eon mode with HDFS. So as part of Vertica 10, we are also announcing support for Vertica and Eon mode using HDFS as the communal storage. Vertica's own ROS format data can be stored in HDFS, and actually the full functionality of Vertica's complete analytics, geospatial, pattern matching, time series, machine learning, everything that we have in there can be applied to this data. And on the same HDFS nodes, Vertica can actually also analyze data in ORC or Parquet format using external tables. We can also execute joins between the ROS data, the external tables, which powers a much more comprehensive view. So again, it's that flexibility to be able to support our customers wherever they need us to support them on whatever platform they have. Vertica 10 gives us a lot more ways that we can deploy Eon mode in various environments for our customers. It allows them to take advantage of Vertica in Eon mode and the power that it brings with that separation, with that workload isolation to whichever platform they are most comfortable with. Now, there's a lot that has come in Vertica 10. I'm definitely not going to be able to cover everything, but we also introduced complex types as an example. And complex data types fit very well into Eon as well in this separation. They significantly reduce the data pipeline, the cost of moving data between nodes, much better support for unstructured data, which a lot of our customers have mixed with structured data, of course. And they leverage a lot of the columnar execution that Vertica provides. So, you get complex data types in Vertica now, a lot more data, stronger performance. It goes great with the announcement that we made with the broader Eon mode. Let's talk a little bit more about machine learning. We've been actually doing work in and around machine learning with various types of regressions and a whole bunch of other algorithms for several years. We saw the huge advantage that MPP offered, not just as a SQL engine, as a database, but for ML as well. It didn't take us long to realize that there's a lot more to operationalizing machine learning than just those algorithms. It's data preparation, it's that model training, it's the scoring, the shaping, the evaluation. That is so much of what machine learning and frankly data science is about, even though everybody always wants to jump to the sexy algorithm. And we handle those tasks very, very well. It makes Vertica a terrific platform to do that. A lot of work in data science and machine learning is done in other tools. I had mentioned that there's just so many tools out there. We want people to be able to take advantage of all that. We never believed we were going to be the best algorithm company or come up with the best models for people to use. So with Vertica 10, we support PMML. We can import now and export PMML models. It's a huge step for us around that operationalizing the machine learning projects for our customers, allowing the models to get built outside of Vertica, yet be imported in and then applied to that full scale of data with all the performance that you would expect from Vertica. We also are more tightly integrating with Python. As many of you know, we've been doing a lot of open source projects with the community, driven by many of our customers like Uber. And so now with Python, we've integrated with TensorFlow, allowing data scientists to build models in their preferred language to take advantage of TensorFlow, but again, store and deploy those models at scale with Vertica. I think both these announcements are proof of our big bet number 3, and really our commitment to supporting innovation throughout the community by operationalizing ML with that accuracy, performance, and scale of Vertica for our customers. You know, again, there's a lot of steps when it comes to the workflow of machine learning. These are some of them that you can see on this slide, and it's definitely not linear either. You know, we see this as a circle, and companies that do it well just continue to learn, they continue to rescore, they continue to redeploy, and they want to operationalize all that within a single platform that can take advantage of all those capabilities. And that is the platform with a very robust ecosystem that Vertica has always been committed to as an organization and will continue to be. This graphic, many of you have seen it evolve over the years. Frankly, if we put everything and everyone on here, it wouldn't fit on a slide, but it will absolutely continue to evolve and grow as we support our customers where they need the support most. So again, being able to deploy everywhere, being able to take advantage of Vertica, not just as a business analyst or a business user, but as a data scientist or as an operational or BI person, we want Vertica to be leveraged and used by the broader organization. So I think it's fair to say, and I encourage everybody to learn more about Vertica 10 because I'm just highlighting some of the bigger aspects of it. But we talked about those 3 market trends: the need to unify the silos, the need for hybrid and multiple cloud deployment options, the need to operationalize business-critical machine learning projects. Vertica 10 has absolutely delivered on those. But again, we are not going to stop. It is our job not to, and this is how Team Vertica thrives. You know, I always joke the next release is the best release. And of course, even after Vertica 10, that is also true, although Vertica 10 is pretty awesome. But, you know, from the first line of code, we've always been focused on performance and scale, right? And like any really strong data platform, the execution engine, you know, the optimizer and the execution engine are the 2 core pieces of that. Beyond Vertica 10, some of the big things that we're already working on, next generation execution engine. We're already actually seeing incredible early performance from this. And this is just one example of how important it is for an organization like Vertica to constantly go back and re-innovate. Every single release we do, the sit-ups and crunches are performance and scale. How do we improve? And there's so many parts of the core server. There's so many parts of our broader ecosystem. We are constantly looking at coverages of how we can go back to all the code lines that we have and make them better in the current environment. And it's not an easy thing to do when you're doing that and you're also expanding in the environments that we are expanding into to take advantage of the different deployments, which is a great segue to this slide. Because if you think about today, you know, we're obviously already available with Eon Mode and Amazon AWS and Pure and actually Minio as well, as I talked about. In Vertica 10, we're adding Google and HDFS, and, you know, coming next, obviously Microsoft Azure, Alibaba Cloud. So being able to expand into more of these environments is really important for the Vertica team and how we go forward. And, you know, it's not just running in these clouds. You know, for us, we want it to be a SaaS-like experience in all these clouds. We want you to be able to deploy Vertica in 15 minutes or less on these clouds. You can also consume Vertica in a lot of different ways, you know, on these clouds. As an example, in Amazon, Vertica by the hour. So for us, it's not just about running, it's about taking advantage of the ecosystems that all these cloud providers offer and really optimizing the Vertica experience as part of them. Optimization around automation, around self-service capabilities, extending our management console. We now have products that, like the Vertica Advisor tool, that our customer success team has created to actually use our own smarts in Vertica to take data from customers that give it to us and help them tune automatically their environment. You know, you can imagine that we're taking that to the next level in a lot of different endeavors that we're doing around how Vertica as a product can actually be smarter, because we all know that simplicity is key. There just aren't enough people in the world who are good at managing data and taking it to the next level. And of course, you know, other things that we all hear about, whether it's Kubernetes and containerization. You can imagine that that probably works very well with the Eon mode and separating compute and storage. But innovation happens everywhere. We innovate around our community documentation. Many of you have taken advantage of the Vertica Academy. The numbers there are through the roof in terms of the number of people coming in and certifying on it. So there's a lot of things that are within the core product. There's a lot of activity and action beyond the core product that we're taking advantage of. And let's not forget why we're here, right? It's easy to talk about a platform, a data platform. It's easy to jump into all the functionality, the analytics, the flexibility, how we can offer it. But at the end of the day, somebody, a person, she's got to take advantage of this data. She's got to be able to take this data and use this information to make a critical business decision. And that doesn't happen unless we explore lots of different and frankly new ways to get, you know, that predictive analytics UI and interface beyond just the standard BI tools in front of her at the right time. And so there's a lot of activity, I'll tease you with that, going on in this organization right now about how we can do that and deliver that for our customers. We're in a great position to be able to see exactly how this data is consumed and used and start with this core platform that we have to go out. Look, I know the plan wasn't to do this as a virtual BDC, but I really appreciate you tuning in, really appreciate your support. I think if there's any silver lining to us maybe not being able to do this in person, it's the fact that the reach has actually gone significantly higher than what we would have been able to do in person in Boston. We're certainly looking forward to doing a big data conference in the future. But if I could leave you with anything, know this. You know, since that first release of Vertica and our very first customers, we have been very consistent. We respect all the innovation around us, you know, whether it's open source or not. We understand the market trends. We embrace those new ideas and technologies. And for us, true north and the most important thing is, what does our customer need to do? What problem are they trying to solve? And how do we use the advantages that we have without disrupting our customers, but knowing that you depend on us to deliver that unified analytics strategy that will deliver that performance at scale, not only today, but tomorrow and for years to come. We've added a lot of great features to Vertica. I think we've said no to a lot of things, frankly, that we just knew we wouldn't be the best company to deliver. When we say we're going to do things, we do them. Vertica 10 is a perfect example of so many of those things that we, from you, our customers, have heard loud and clear, and we have delivered. I am incredibly proud of this team across the board. I think the culture of Vertica, a customer-first culture, jumping in to help our customers win no matter what, is also something that sets us massively apart. I hear horror stories about support experiences with other organizations, and people always seem to be amazed at Team Vertica's willingness to jump in or their aptitude for certain technical capabilities or understanding the business. And I think sometimes we take that for granted, but that is the team that we have as Team Vertica. We are incredibly excited about Vertica 10. I think you're going to love the virtual Big Data Conference this year. I encourage you to tune in. Maybe one other benefit is I know some people were worried about not being able to see different sessions because they were going to overlap with each other. Well, now, even if you can't do it live, you'll be able to do those sessions on demand. Please enjoy the Vertica Big Data Conference here in 2020. Please, you and your families and your coworkers, be safe during these times. I know we will get through it. And analytics is probably going to help with a lot of that. We already know it is helping in many different ways. So believe in the data, believe in data's ability to change the world for the better, and thank you for your time. And with that, I am delighted to now introduce Micro Focus CEO Stephen Murdoch to the Vertica Big Data Virtual Conference. Thank you. Stephen?
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephen Murdoch. I have the pleasure and the privilege of being the Chief Executive Officer here at Micro Focus. Please let me add my welcome to the Big Data Conference and also my thanks for your support as we've had to pivot to this being virtual rather than a physical conference. It's amazing how quickly we all reset to a new normal. I certainly didn't expect to be addressing you from my study. Vertica is an incredibly important part of the Micro Focus family. It's key to our goal of trying to enable and help customers become much more data-driven across all of their IT operations. Vertica 10 is a huge step forward, we believe. It allows for multi-cloud innovation, genuinely hybrid deployments, begin to leverage machine learning properly in the enterprise, and also allows the opportunity to unify currently siloed lakes of information. We operate in a very noisy, very competitive market, and there are people in that market who can do some of those things. The reason we're so excited about Vertica is we genuinely believe that we're the best at doing all of those things. And that's why we've announced publicly and are executing internally incremental investment into Vertica. That investment's targeted at accelerating the roadmaps that already exist and getting that innovation into your hands faster. And this idea of speed is key. It's not a question of if companies have to become data-driven organizations, it's a question of when. So that speed now is really important. And that's why we believe that the Big Data Conference gives a great opportunity for you to accelerate your own plans. You will have the opportunity to talk to some of our best architects, some of the best development brains that we have. But more importantly, you'll also get to hear from some of our phenomenal roster of customers. You'll hear from Uber, from the Trade Desk, from Philips, and from AT&T, as well as many, many others. And just hearing how those customers are using the power of Vertica to accelerate their own, I think is the highlight. And I encourage you to use this opportunity to its full. Let me close by, again, saying thank you. We genuinely hope that you get as much from this virtual conference as you could have from a physical conference. And we look forward to your engagement, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us for the Vertica Big Data Conference. Your support and enthusiasm for Vertica is so clear, and it makes a big difference. Now, I'm delighted to introduce Amy Fowler, the VP of Strategy and Solutions for FlashBlade at Pure Storage, who is one of our BDC Platinum sponsors and one of our most valued partners. It was a proud moment for me when we announced Vertica in Eon mode for Pure Storage FlashBlade, and we became the first analytics data warehouse that separates compute from storage for on-premise data centers. Thank you so much, Amy, for joining us. Let's get started.
Well, thank you, Joy, so much for having us, and thank you all for joining us today, virtual as we may all be. So, as we just heard from Colin Mahoney, there are some really interesting trends that are happening right now in the big data analytics market. from the end of the Hadoop hype cycle to the new cloud reality, and even the opportunity to help the many data science and machine learning projects move from labs to production. So let's talk about these trends in the context of infrastructure, and in particular, look at why a modern storage platform is relevant as organizations take on the challenges and opportunities associated with these trends. The end of the Hadoop hype cycle has left a lot of data in HDFS data lakes, or reservoirs or swamps, depending upon the level of data hygiene, but without the ability to get the value that was promised from Hadoop as a platform rather than a distributed file store. And when we combine that data with the massive volume of data in cloud object storage, we find ourselves with a lot of data in a lot of silos, but without a way to unify that data and find value in it. Now, when you look at the infrastructure data lakes were traditionally built on, it is often direct attached storage, or DAS. The approach that Hadoop took when it entered the market was primarily bound by the limits of networking and storage technologies, 1 gig Ethernet and slower spinning disk. But today, those barriers do not exist, and all-flash storage has fundamentally transformed how data is accessed, managed, and leveraged. The need for local DAS storage for significant volumes of data has been largely negated by the performance increases afforded by all-flash. At the same time, organizations can achieve superior economies of scale with that disaggregation of compute and storage. Because compute and storage don't always scale in lockstep. Would you want to add an engine to the train every time you add another boxcar? Probably not. So from a pure storage perspective, FlashBlade is uniquely architected to allow customers to achieve better resource utilization for compute and storage, while at the same time reducing complexity that has arisen from the siloed nature of the original big data solutions. The second and equally important recent trend we see is something I'll call cloud reality. The public clouds made a lot of promises, and some of those promises were delivered. But cloud economics, especially usage-based and elastic scaling, without the control that many companies need to manage the financial impact, is causing a lot of issues. In addition, the risk of vendor lock-in, from data egress charges to integrated software stacks that can't be moved or deployed on-premise, is causing a lot of organizations to back off the all-in non-cloud strategy and move toward hybrid deployments, which is kind of funny in a way because it wasn't that long ago that there was a lot of talk about like, no more data centers. And for example, one large retailer, I won't name them, but I'll admit they are my favorite, they several years ago told us they were completely done with on-prem storage infrastructure because they were going 100% to the cloud. But they just deployed FlashBlade for their data pipeline because they need predictable performance at scale, and the all-cloud TCO just didn't add up. Now that being said, while there are certainly challenges with the public cloud, it has also brought some things to the table that we see most organizations wanting. First of all, in a lot of cases, applications have been built to leverage object storage platforms like S3. So they need that object protocol, but they may also need it to be fast. And fast object was an oxymoron only a few years ago. And this is an area of the market where Pure and FlashBlade have really taken a leadership position. Second, regardless of where the data is physically stored, organizations want the best elements of the cloud experience. And for us, that means two main things. Number one is simplicity and ease of use. If you need a bunch of storage experts to run the system, that should be considered a bug. The other big one is the consumption model, the ability to pay for what you need, when you need it, and seamlessly grow your environment over time totally non-disruptively. This is actually pretty huge and something that a lot of vendors try to solve for with finance programs. But no finance program can address the pain of a forklift upgrade when you need to move to next-gen hardware. To scale non-destructively over long periods of time, 5 to 10 years plus, means that crucial architectural decisions need to be made at the outset. Plus, you need the ability to pay as you use it, and we offer something for FlashBlade called Pure as a Service, which delivers exactly that. The third cloud characteristics that many organizations want is the option for hybrid, even if that is just a DR site in the cloud. In our case, that means supporting replication of S3 to AWS. And the final trend, which to me represents the biggest opportunity for all of us, is the need to help the many data science and machine learning projects move from labs to production. This means bringing all the machine learning functions and model training to the data rather than moving samples or segments of data to separate platforms. As we all know, machine learning needs a ton of data for accuracy, and there is just too much data to retrieve from the cloud for every training job. At the same time, predictive analytics without accuracy is not going to deliver the business advantage that everyone is seeking. You can kind of visualize data analytics as it is traditionally deployed as being on a continuum, with that thing we've been doing the longest, data warehousing, on one end, and AI on the other end. But the way this manifests in most environments is a series of silos that get built up. So data is duplicated across all kinds of bespoke analytics and AI environments and infrastructure. This creates an expensive and complex environment. But historically, there was no other way to do it because some level of performance is always table stakes. And each of these parts of the data pipeline has a different workload profile. A single platform that could deliver on the multidimensional performance this diverse set of applications required didn't exist 3 years ago. And that's why the application vendors pointed you towards bespoke things like DAS environments that we talked about earlier. And the fact that better options exist today is why we're seeing them move towards supporting this disaggregation of compute and storage. And when it comes to a platform that is a better option, one with a modern architecture that can address the diverse performance requirements of this continuum and allow organizations to bring the model to the data instead of creating separate silos, that's exactly what FlashBlade is built for. Small files, large files, high throughput, low latency, and scale to petabytes in a single namespace, and just as importantly, a single rack of space, is what we're focused on delivering for our customers. At Pure, we talk about it in the context of modern data experience because at the end of the day, that's what it's really all about, the experience for your teams and your organization. And together, Pure Storage and Vertica have delivered that experience to a wide range of customers. From a SaaS analytics company which uses Vertica on FlashBlade to authenticate the quality of digital media in real time, to a multinational car company which uses Vertica on FlashBlade to make thousands of decisions per second for autonomous cars, or a healthcare organization which uses Vertica on FlashBlade to enable healthcare providers to make real-time decisions that impact lives. And I'm sure all looking forward to hearing from John Yovanovich from AT&T to hear how he's been doing this with Vertica and FlashBlade as well. He's coming up soon. We've been really excited to build this partnership with Vertica, and we're proud to provide the only on-premise storage platform validated with Vertica Eon mode and deliver this modern data experience to our customers together. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Amy, thank you so much for your time and your insights. Modern infrastructure is key to modern analytics, especially as organizations leverage next-generation data center architectures and object storage for their on-premise data centers. Now, I'm delighted to introduce our last speaker in our Vertica Big Data Conference keynote, John Yovanovich, Director of IT for AT&T. Vertica is so proud to serve AT&T and especially proud of the harmonious impact we are having in partnership with Pure Storage. John, welcome to the virtual Vertica BDC.
Thank you, Joy. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to go through this presentation today and in a unique fashion today, because as I was thinking through how I wanted to present the partnership that we have formed together between Pure Storage, Vertica, and AT&T, I wanted to emphasize how well we all work together and how these three components have really driven home my desire for a harmonious, to use your word, relationship. So I'm going to move forward here and we'll go with. So here, what I'm going to do, the theme of today's presentation is the Pure Vertica Symphony, live at AT&T. And if anybody's a Westworld fan, you can appreciate the sheet music on the right-hand side. What I'm going to highlight here is, in a musical fashion, is how we at AT&T leverage these technologies to save money, to deliver a more efficient platform, and to actually just to make our customers happier overall. And so as we look back as early as just maybe a few years ago here at AT&T, I realized that we had many musicians throughout the company, or well, maybe you might want to call them data scientists or data analysts, but for the theme, we'll stay with musicians. None of them were singing or playing from the same hymn book or sheet music. And so what we had was many organizations chasing a similar dream, but not exactly the same dream. And the best way to describe that is, and I think a lot of people, this might resonate in your organizations, how many organizations are chasing a customer 360 view in your company? Well, I can tell you that I have at least 4 in my company, and I'm sure there are many that I don't know of. And that is our problem, because what we see is a repetitive sourcing of data. We see a repetitive copying of data, and there's just so much money to be spent. And this is where I asked Pure Storage and Vertica to help me solve that problem with their technologies. What I also noticed was that there was no coordination between these departments. In fact, if you look here, nobody really wants to play with finance. Sales, marketing, and care, sure, they all copied each other's data, but they actually didn't communicate with each other as they were copying the data. So the data became replicated and out of sync. This is a challenge throughout, and not just my company, but all companies across the world. And that is, the more we replicate the data, the more problems we have at chasing or conquering the goal of single version of truth. In fact, I kid that I think that AT&T, we actually have adopted the multiple versions of truth theory, which is not what we want to be, but this is where we are, but we are conquering that with the synergies between Pure Storage and Vertica. So this is what it leaves us with, and this is where we are challenged is each one of our siloed business units had their own storage, their own dedicated storage, and some of them had more money than others, so they bought more storage. Some of them anticipated storing more data than they really did. Others are running out of space but can't put it anymore because their budgets aren't been replenished. So if you look at it from this side view here, we have a limited amount of compute or fixed compute dedicated to each one of these silos. And that's because of the, wanting to own your own. And the other part is that we are limited or wasting space, depending on where you are in the organization. So the synergies aren't just about the data, but actually the compute and the storage. And I wanted to tackle that challenge as well. So I was tackling the data, I was tackling the storage, and I was tackling the compute all at the same time. And so my ask across the company was, can we just please play together? Okay. And to do that, I knew that I wasn't going to tackle this by getting everybody in the same room and getting them to agree that we needed one account table, because they all argue about whose account table was the best account table. But I knew that if I brought the account tables together, they would soon see that they had so much redundancy that I could start retiring data sources. Also knew that if I brought all the compute together, that they would all be happy. But I didn't want them to tackle each other in the fact that one of the things that all business units really enjoy is they enjoy the silo of having their own compute and more or less being able to control their own destiny. Well, Vertica's subclustering allows just that. And this is exactly what I was hoping for, and I'm glad they brought through. And finally, how did I solve the problem of the single account table? Well, when you don't have dedicated storage, and you can separate the compute and storage as Vertica Eon mode does, and we store the data on FlashBlades, which you see on the left and right-hand sides of the of our container, which I can describe in a moment. Okay, so what we have here is we have a container full of compute with all the Vertica nodes sitting in the middle. Two loader, we'll call them loader clusters, subclusters, sitting on the sides, which are dedicated to just putting data onto the FlashBlades, which are sitting on both ends of the container. Now today, I have two dedicated storage, or we'll call them, well, dedicated might not be the right word, but two storage racks, one on the left, one on the right, and I treat them as separate storage racks. They could be one, but I created them separately for disaster recovery purposes. Well, actually more like in case that rack were to go down. But that being said, there's no reason why. I'm probably going to couple them here in the future so I can just have a 5 to 10 petabyte storage setup. And I'll have my DR in another, because a true DR shouldn't be in the same container. Okay, but I'll have DR outside of this container. So as I got them all together, I leveraged subclustering, I leveraged separated compute. I was able to convince many of my clients that they didn't need their own account table, that they were better off having one. I reduced latency, I reduced our ticketing, I reduced our data quality issues, aka ticketing, okay? I was able to expand, I was able to leverage elasticity within this cluster. As you can see, there are racks and racks of compute. We set up what we'll call the fixed capacity that each of the business units needed, and then I'm able to ramp up and release the compute that's necessary for each one of my clients based on their workloads throughout the day. And so all the compute to the right of where you see that the instruments have already more or less dedicated themselves towards, all of those are free for anybody to use. So in essence, what I have is I have a concert hall with a lot of seats available, so that if I want to run a 10-chair symphony or an 80-chair symphony, I'm able to do that. And all the while, I can also do the same with my loader nodes. I can expand my loader nodes to actually have their own symphony all to themselves and not compete with any of the workloads of the other clusters. Excuse me. What does that change for our organization? Well, it really changes the way our database administrators actually do their jobs. This has been a big transformation for them. They have actually become data conductors, or maybe you might even call them composers, which is interesting, because what I've asked them to do is morph into less technology and more workload analysis. And in doing so, we're able to write auto-detect scripts that watch the queues, watch the workloads, so that we can help ramp up and trim down the subclusters as necessary. This has been an exciting transformation for our DBAs, who I need to now classify as something maybe like VCAs. I don't know. I'll have to work with HR on that. But I think it's an exciting future for their careers. And if we bring it all together, then our clusters start looking like this, where everything is moving and harmonious. We have lots of seats open for extra musicians, and we are able to emulate a cloud experience on-prem. And so I want you to sit back and enjoy the pure Vertica Symphony live at AT&T.
Thank you so much, John, for an informative and very creative look at the benefits that AT&T is getting from its pure Vertica symphony. I do really like the idea of engaging HR to change the title to Data Conductor. That's fantastic. I've always believed that music brings people together, and now it's clear that analytics at AT&T is part of that musical advantage. So now it's time for a short break, and we'll be back for our breakout sessions beginning at 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We have some really exciting sessions planned later today, and then again, as you can see, on Wednesday. Now, because all of you are already logged in and listening to this keynote, you already know the steps to continue to participate in the sessions that are listed here and on the previous slide. In addition, everyone received an email yesterday, today, and you'll get another one tomorrow, outlining the simple steps to register, log in, and choose your session. If you have any questions, check out the emails or go to www.vertica.com/BDC2020 for the logistics information. There are a lot of choices, and that's always a good thing. Don't worry if you want to attend one or more or can't listen to these live sessions due to your time zone. All the sessions, including the Q&A sections, will be available on demand, and everyone will have access to the recordings as well as even more pre-recorded sessions that we'll post to the BDC website. Now, I do want to leave you with two other important sites. First, our Vertica Academy. Vertica Academy is available to everyone, and there's a variety of very technical, self-paced, on-demand training, virtual instructor-led workshops, and Vertica Essentials certification. And it's all free because we believe that Vertica expertise helps everyone accelerate their Vertica projects and the advantage that those projects deliver. Now, if you have questions or want to engage with our Vertica engineering team now, we're waiting for you on the Vertica forum. We'll answer any questions or discuss any ideas that you might have. Thank you again for joining the Vertica Big Data Conference keynote session. Enjoy the rest of the BDC because there's a lot more to come.